1 o'clock and 11 seconds. I'm on the air. OMG. Wow. And we need to pick up where we left off from last week. So, yes, once again, this is Brother R.A., the brother who has something to say each and every day. Anyway, where are we? We are on CCTV. That's right. And we will be loading, putting up, let's see, BROTHERRA.com. And for those that are at home that are not familiar with BrotherRA.com, you can go ahead and watch the show either by clicking YouTube right here, or you can click the TV, which will bring you to me live. Okay? And once again, back into the palatial suite. Voila. And I was going to open with the Cove, but I'm human and I'll have to tell you about the Cove. But acknowledge the shirt. Oh, let's move that out the way. The wise man looking at the bird and the serpent. What is that message? This is Roxbury Tai Chi Academy T-shirt Master Heat. What's the communication? What's the relationship between the snake and the bird? Okay, and now we have this week's Ankh, the female, the circle at the top, and the umbilical cord in this male, and of course balance, light as a feather, with the backdrop of the dolphin. And after watching the dolphin last night with my female friend, she's like, R.A., that was pretty morbid. And you really can't show all of that on air. It wouldn't be polite. You might turn off some of your audience. And, hence, I didn't bring the Cove. That wasn't deliberate. I just forgot. It didn't happen. But this is what balance is about. Yin and yang. The balance. So, once again, let me share with you. You're watching BrotherRA.com, the brother who's got too much to say each and every day. And we're still working on several issues of the internet and bringing things together for you as a thinking black man. I'm watching you. Before I describe the Cove in my words, I had my female friend open the Tao, and she opened the Tao to mysticism. I'll just go ahead and begin reading. Mysticism. All mystical traditions are one. They are the seed of all religions. Tao, Zen, Tantra, Yoga, Kabbalah, Sufi, mystic Christianity, shamanism, and so many more secretly treasured by their adherents. these all share the same mystical sense of communion with the divine. Meditation is not something peculiar to one culture. All cultures know a mystical core that emphasizes continuing refinement, meditation, unification with the greater cosmos. I call that greater order Tao. They call it by different names. What does it matter what people call it? When they discover what was holy, they uttered different sounds according to their history and culture. But they all discovered the same thing. There is only one divine source in life. For generations, mystics of all traditions have plunged into Tao. When they meet on the unutterable levels, they know without words that they have reached the same core of spirituality. No matter where in the world you are, there are traditions with purity that lead you to Tao. I read somewhere else that in the earlier typings of the Bible began in the Tao, and in translation, God was translated as Tao. Let me continue on. Time is not a brother's friend. 327. That was 326. Mysticism. Let's go to colorless. What's the difference between erotic and spiritual? Temples and lovers are equally gaudy. 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 What's the difference between eroticism and spirituality? Both refer to ecstasy. Both lead to transcendence of the self. Both lead to unification with a larger order. Both are vulnerable to the excesses of perversion, lust, sadism, obsession, madness, eroticism, and spirituality. The two deepest endeavors of humanity are twins. Both eroticism and spirituality mean intense involvement in the diversity and the color of the world. But there is a higher order, a state where one is holiness itself. In the parentheses of my mind, I want to say in your motherfucking self. But, okay, I shared that aspect of Brother R.A. Let's continue. But there is a higher order in a state where one is holiness itself. Then nothing of the world of color matters to you anymore. The pleasures of the couch will mean nothing. Neither will the glories of aesthetics efforts mean anything. Only by entering the colorless state of pure, blinding light can there be freedom from the twins. Meditation changes your consciousness. The type of consciousness that emerges depends on the meditation. Your consciousness, in turn, colors of your perceptions of the world around you. There is no such thing as objective reality. You color everything. If you want the highest state of being, aim for consciousness without color. My white partner, female friend, chose this after us watching the Cove. And in watching the Cove, it discussed the individual man who created Flipper, that white man who created the television series Flipper by capturing the first 5 dolphins and after he caught them and started living with them and dealing with them on a regular basis, he acknowledged their level of consciousness and their level of intellect and their level of communication. And for me, as a melanin dominant black man, Father Nature tapping into my first eye, understanding and researching, wait a minute, the third orb or the third planet away from the sun. I am on that third planet. I am a child of this sun, receiving the frequencies on this orb. And on this orb, 70% of the globe is water. Only 30% of the earth is land. Now the dolphin swims, 40 miles an hour? Has breakfast over here, has lunch over there. It can get 24 miles or whatever, how far, wherever it eats breakfast, it doesn't have to eat that. It can travel 40 miles an hour to somewhere else, and it's intelligent, and it has a means of communicating. And this individual captured dolphins and put together the Cove DVD. And I'm looking for it on the internet. I'm trying to see if I can find the clips. It shows you where you can buy it. I have my own particular copy here. I'll just show you this real quick. And dealing with these dolphins, these intellectual, whatever I don't wish to confine any life to a particular word. But you and I are human beings, and how intellectually astute and acute are we in our levels of consciousness? Is it possible that the dolphins have a little more balance? Light as a feather, R.A. Don't be harsh. And who am I? What was this series? Unsurpassable Justice, dealing with tell me who I am as a black man. And I made some harsh statements, and we are one humanity on this third orb away from the sun, this third sphere. And as Father Nature tapping into myself, reaching a higher level of relaxation, learning. Am I capable of reaching out from the core, the center of the earth, to Orion's belt and the North Star? My female friend told me, yo, R.A., the arteries, veins, and blood cells, there's enough within one human body to go around the planet Earth twice. I had to explain to her that's yin and yang. That's balance. This is who you and I are as divine spiritual beings. All right, enough talk, 18 minutes into the show. I said I was going to read from the calendar last week. I talked about, let me make reference inside the Cove before I read the calendar. He worked the rest of his life trying not to have dolphins captured. But in Tokyo, these dolphins are captured and led to the Cove. And he describes specifically, after sneaking all of the material out of this country over to Japan, having night optic vision that could see your temperature and inside your body. He had to use night vision and so on and so forth, and a bunch of swimmers that could dive into the waters and place cameras inside of rocks. And they got behind the Cove and showed exactly what was being done to the captured dolphins that have supersonic hearing inside the water, and they were leading the dolphins into the cove by beating a hammer into the sound of the water, and their sonic hearing, they were going crazy listening to this boing, 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 and driving them, and drove them into the cove. And once they got the dolphins into the cove, their video material, they logged not only how they were stabbing and capturing the dolphins, that, okay, wait a minute, we have coal burning factories around the planet, fossil fuel burning factories. And where does the eminence of the residue of the smoke rest? In the motherfucking ocean and on the planet, and we breathe it. But the dolphins, they absorb all of that, and they have high levels of mercury in their bloodstream, in their system. After capturing these dolphins, stabbing them, and then they try to say something like, oh, we need to capture the dolphins because it's pest control. Did I not say something about mind control and media literacy, and who are we and what kind of knowledge do we absorb? So these workers, these Asians or Japan or Japanese, they're still melanin dominant people that are capable of surviving in a hot, sunny, dry tundra desert area. These melanin dominant individuals are told, capture the dolphins for pest control. Yes, they have high levels of mercury. We slaughter them and serve dolphin meat as sushi around the planet. Is what you're eating have high levels of mercury dolphin meat? Media Literacy 101, think it's not illegal yet. So, I got that piece out, and this is the month of November. And what was last, today is the 28th, on the 22nd was Thanksgiving. Here, I just wish to read November. This is my calendar. Oh, can y'all see the picture? The picture reads, children of sharecropper on the porch of their Montgomery County, Alabama home in 1937. The exploitative system of sharecropping trapped many blacks in poverty for generations after the abolition of slavery. Library of Congress. I showed you that picture. This was American troops supervised a mandatory relocation of Japanese Americans from their homes in the West Coast to the internment camps during World War II. And, that's a great picture, huh? September calendar. Okay, let's get back to November. Let's read what happened on Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving. We're talking about make that 1983. James Cody is beaten, electrocuted, and threatened with castration by officers of the Chicago Police Department, which systematically tortured more than 100 black men over 3 decades. That was the 18th of 1983. 2018, we're in. 1988. Judge in Dallas, Texas, gives reduced sentence to white students for targeted killing of 2 gay men, liking the victims to prostitutes and refusing to give somebody life for killing a prostitute. Now, the target, in your comprehension of seeing the target, are you the one targeted? Are you targeted? Or are you capable of tapping in to all of your vibrations on all levels, on the denotative, the connotative, and the abstract levels of your individuality? Are you the one straightening your spine, acknowledging the levels of your mind, tapping into the divine? Do you see the whole picture, or are you just a target? Are you the little one? You the little circle? You're not secure in yourself? I is Father Nature, life, balanced, light as a feather. I'm learning to tap into my divinity, my infinity. I am not just the target, but I'm all vibrations of life and humanity. And that was the 19th, November 19th, 1988. Give somebody life for killing a prostitute? Who created the circumstances? Didn't I just play, what was the DVD where Ice-T and they were talking about the pimps and the means to survive in this particular society? Are you a target? Are you the target? Or are you feeling all vibrations of your divinity and tapping into oneself? November 20th, 1962, President John F. Kennedy orders an end to racial discrimination in federally financed housing. That was 1962. Now we're talking about 1927. On the 21st of November, U.S. Supreme Court in Gong Lum versus Rice allows Chinese citizens exclusion from a state school for white children because she can attend a colored school with equal educational facilities. So the Asian can go to school with the niggas because that's equal education. All right, you talk too much. Thanksgiving Day, 1865. Mississippi requires local sheriffs. I'm not even high. I'm lisping my words, trying to hurry up. Slow down, breathe. I know I only got less than 30 minutes left. 1865. Mississippi requires local sheriffs to round up black orphans and sell them to whites as laborers. Happy Thanksgiving. How you doing? I'm just Brother R.A. I'm just life. And 1865, 2018. What do I know? I'm just a brother sharing some balance. Okay, I did A, B, C. What else am I gonna do? Oh, and my white female friend told me after watching the show about the dolphins and all the, and behind the cove they had a drone fly over the cove and you could see all the blood in the water. And I mean, this cove was and you had only one way to get in, is the mountains, and it was just the cove right there, and the drone flew over and you could see all the blood in the water, and they were swimming under the water, showing that, and showing the blood in the ocean and so on and so forth. And I'm hoping, was I able to load that? No, I guess we're just going to have to go to the next piece. Technology and my chi, we don't get along. My chi and my energy, I'm working to, here, can this come up? Is this going to play for me? Can I show this? It won't. How do I get that to play? It won't play. All right, never mind. We won't play it this week. How about if I do that? No? All right, let's move on to the next piece of media. I wanted to show you the in the water and the dolphins and the community of the dolphins, and how, watching NFL and the melanin dominant black players, when they run a specific play with a black quarterback, their chi and their energy. And so the NFL melanin dominant players, I cheer for the melanin dominant black quarterbacks, have a little more sensual, a little more acute intuitiveness in feeling the brother's vibe and chi, and can put the depth of the ball in the right place at the right time for the other brother to catch the ball. Yes, I'm not denying white quarterbacks, but I really don't appreciate the white commentators or even the black commentators pumping up the white quarterback so much so where the brothers like Dak or Cam or Russell Wilson or Patrick Moynihan, they don't get the equal props as a Aaron Rodgers or so on and so forth. Pump up the melanin dominant where these brothers are working, and they flow like the dolphins. You don't see dolphins running into one another. It's a community. The dolphins, and when the divers swim with the dolphins, there's a level of movement and communication to and from. Commune. Come together. All right, did I get that point out? And she also made reference to, I talk about I, and I talk about I because I am you. You are me. We are one. We are one divine energy. Yin and yang. That different aspect. And the Tao talks about you choose. See, I'm an introvert and you're an extrovert. Incorporate that into the psychology of our biology. How about incorporating the chi and energy that I'm putting out to you? Okay, I dealt with that, and that. Okay, we're going to go to milk, the deadly poison. And I wished for this to play on air before Thanksgiving and show the blood, but that was a little too more. Maybe that was a little too harsh. But you get the visualization of the killing of whales. That's what a dolphin is, a different type of whale, but it's an intelligent being. And their blood in the cove of the water. Can you see that? Okay, milk, the deadly poison. How much dairy do melanin dominant people consume during these quote unquote holidays?
And I want to introduce another conspiracy, if you will. We're talking about milk, the deadly poison. And yes, we have another Jewish gentleman on the phone line, Robert Cohen. Robert, are you with us?
I sure am. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Excellent.
morning.
Now, I just want to be basic and be plain, cut through all the chase. We don't care about your academic accolades, how you've been USDA grade A stamped. We want to know a little bit about who you are before we get into this milk, the deadly poison. Who is Robert? How do you spend your time, Robert?
Well, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, I'm a researcher, and I'm also a writer. And I believe there's a conspiracy here. It's a conspiracy of ignorance. We listen to Madison Avenue. The dairy industry spends a few $100 million a year painting milk mustaches on people like Spike Lee. We know that 95% of African Americans are lactose intolerant, yet Spike Lee proudly wears his milk mustache. And we're getting a message, white and black. But you know something? You have a party, you invite 20 black people to a party and 20 white people to a party. You give them free pizza and free ice cream. 1 out of 20 of those white people are going to get sick, and 19 out of 20 of those black people are going to get sick. What have we got here? We've got lactose intolerant. That's the easy part of milk and dairy products. We got something called slavery in America, and we're giving our children, those who live under the poverty level, they go to schools here in New York. We give 500,000 African-American children free milk, cheese, butter, yogurt 3 times a day. They get it for breakfast, lunch, and snack. This is free nutrition because they're below the poverty level. And let me tell you about this milk stuff. The number one protein in milk, 80% of all protein in milk, is something called casein, C-A-S-E-I-N. Casein is the glue they use to put a label on a bottle of beer. Casein is the glue they use to hold together the wood in your furniture. This is an allergic reaction people have. You make mucus when you eat casein, and you eat just what the average American eats. You're making about a gallon of mucus a day. It fills every organ in your body.
So, Robert, what you're saying is, what you do with your time is you write and you research. So you've done experiments with milk specifically to understand how it reacts inside an individual's body?
Well, yes, I have, and as a matter of fact, I've started the Anti-Dairy Coalition. I have some of the greatest doctors of America with me, people like Dr. Heimlich, the person who did the Heimlich maneuver doctor. I had Dr. Spock with me. Last month, the largest medical newsletter in the world, the entire issue was all about milk and all about the Anti-Dairy Coalition, giving people the advice that this does not do the body any good, despite what the government has been telling you and despite what the dairy industry advertises. There are a lot of very, very bad things about milk and scary things about milk.
So would it surprise you in the Boston Herald, Friday, November 27th, there was a headline, Black-White Health Gap, Still a Puzzle. And then the opening, this was Laura Meckler, Associated Press, Atlanta. Decades after the civil rights movement forced America to confront racial inequities, disturbing disparities remain on one of the most basic human levels. Blacks get sicker easier, stay sicker longer, and die sooner than whites. Can you...
Well, it makes sense. Blacks are doing something kind of silly. They're eating white man's poison. And this is something that affects white people differently than black people. We know lactose is something people will get gas and bloating and diarrhea and constipation from a sugar in milk. But we don't talk about the proteins in milk. Protein normally you think is good for you. But I'll give you an example of proteins. Adrenaline is a protein. Hormones are made up of proteins. And when you drink milk, every sip of milk has 59 different bioactive hormones. You don't want to send your 10-year-old boy to school every day with testosterone and adrenaline. There was a doctor's newsletter called the Townsend Medical Letter. 180,000 doctors get that newsletter. It's written by doctors for doctors. In May of 1995, they had 11 symptoms from milk and dairy consumption. You can find it on my book, page 259. They had mood swings, irritability, and depression. You don't want your kids to have mood swings, irritability, and depression when they go to school. You load them up with milk. You load these kids up with something that's going to take away their ability to learn, and it's going to keep them enslaved. And this is something the USDA knows and the FDA knows, that African Americans are affected much worse than Caucasians.
But, Doctor, we all have grown up. We've all been... I've been drinking milk all my life. I can hear my grandfather now. Ari, I've been drinking milk for almost 80 years. It's good for me. That's what I've been told.
That's good for me, right? I want to tell you about this idiot that many of you have seen on television. Hi, I'm Larry King. I just had triple bypass surgery. I want you to take garlic to lower your cholesterol. Hey, Larry, if you're the average American today, milk and dairy products, you're going to eat 161 milligrams of cholesterol, the same amount contained in 53 slices of bacon. You're the average American, you're eating the same amount of cholesterol from milk and dairy contained in 19,345 slices this year. What's happening to African Americans? They're dying of heart disease at accelerated rates. They're eating more of this milk and dairy and cheese. It's just concentrated hormones. It's concentrated hormones with, oh, I'm sorry, Sister SDSD. This is pus. The FDA allows 750 million pus cells in a quart of milk.
I can't eat my granola without my yogurt. What,
oh, man.
What are you doing?
I can't eat my cereal without my milk, Robert.
Pus with hormones and glue, Sister SDSD.
I mean, is that true even of organic yogurt?
Sure. If you have a cow living in your backyard, you feed her barley and clover and corn and grass, her milk is going to contain 59 different hormones. Let me tell you about the scariest hormone.
Uh-oh.
There is one hormone in milk that in all of nature, you've got 500,000 different hormones, 4,000 mammals. There's only one hormone that is exactly alike between two animals. It's human and cow. It's in milk. It's called IGF-1. You make this hormone in your body, Sister SDSD, but it's exactly alike in cow's milk, IGF-1. It's the only thing that makes breast cancer grow if you're unlucky enough to get it. This is the key. This is a bigger secret than the cigarette industry ever had, and we're killing our people. So we're telling African Americans, drink more milk. We're getting my friend Patrick Ewing in New York, the New York Knicks, who's never going to play again, I hope. We get Patrick Ewing and Spike Lee and Naomi Campbell, and we get African Americans. I got a very sad story to tell you. We love FloJo here. I don't know how you felt about Florence Griffith Joyner. She won Olympic gold medals, but I spoke yesterday with the coroner. I spoke with Al Joyner, her husband, yesterday. This didn't kill. They said she died of positional asphyxia, which is what happens when you have a couple of cops on your back and one of them is doing a chokehold. They said she died of an epileptic seizure. When a person has an epileptic seizure, they put a shoe in their mouth so they don't bite their tongue off. Her tongue was intact. I have her autopsy. I got her autopsy. She had in her stomach, after 14 hours after she ate her pizza, it was still there in her stomach. She was putting out histamines. That's the body's reaction to milk. When you eat casein, that glue, you can't digest it. And that stuff was in her stomach 14 hours later. Every organ in her body, according to the autopsy, was congested with acute congestion with mucus. She had a couple of gallons of mucus in her body. She was choking on her body fluids. Her lungs were filled with frothy fluid and mucus. Her tracheal bronchial tree was filled with mucus. And this is what happens. Here in New York, we have 500,000 kids with asthma. And what are we giving them? Free breakfast, free lunch, free snack in school. We're giving them cheese. We're giving them this number one protein, casein, which is glue, which you can't digest, and the body freaks out, starts producing histamines, which make mucus. Every child that I've gotten off of milk and dairy products, the asthma always goes away. You have any kids in Boston with asthma?
Oh, too many children.
Oh, most definitely. Robert, we just had an article in last week's Globe. Actually, I'm looking for it. Oh, let's see. The date, we're looking at Saturday, November 21st. A breathtaking epidemic. And the first line is Kalia da Silva, apple-cheeked girl with swirl of barrettes in her hair, was sitting in her kitchen table, sipping milk, when her heart started pounding and her eyes flamed red. I mean, the first line, and now we're talking about within the black district here in Roxbury, a portion of Boston, 02119. We're talking about cases of asthma. Now, the average citywide rate, we're looking at 11.1 cases, 11.1 per 1,000. That's the average for the city. But in Roxbury, in the zip code 02119, in Roxbury, per 1,000, we have 20.2 cases. The highest rate in the whole city of Boston is right in Roxbury.
Do you have a lot of poverty in Roxbury? Do the kids get free nutrition, free breakfast and lunch in school?
Well, the newspaper article talks about the poverty, and it talks about the environmental circumstances. They're saying there's a lot of rat hair.
Oh,
there's
that's nonsense. You are what you eat. If you go to my internet site, Not Milk, www.notmilk.com, if you don't have the internet, you can get it for free in the library. I've written a column about what this does to African-American children. This cannot be digested, this casein. It's glue, and your body is producing mucus, and you choke on your mucus. It's really simple. Eliminate this from your body. You know, everybody should do an experiment. Everybody in your audience should go 5 days, don't eat any milk and dairy products, and then on day 6, just eat one slice of pizza, or as Sister Esty is doing, eat a cup of yogurt, and pay very careful attention what happens about 10 hours later. You never notice the difference. Pay attention to your body 10 hours later, because that's how long it takes. And if you do it every day and every meal like the average American does, you've got a constant problem. And if you eliminate, very easy.
Now, we've had Anthony Browder on the show, who we talked to him about health issues, and what he says is we need to clean out our intestinal tract. He says most fat people with that rubber tire, that's backed up fecal matter stuck to the intestinal walls. And do you think the glue in the milk keeps the food stuck to your intestinal walls?
Well, I'll tell you something. It's very difficult to digest. When you look at Flojo's stomach, there's the truth. 14 hours after she ate her pizza, she had, the coroner says, she had 250 cc's. That's the size of a brick. He said 250 cc's of digested food. This wasn't a medical examiner. He was a stand-up comic. Because if it's in your stomach 14 hours after you eat it, it's not digested food. It's undigested food. And if it's undigested after 14 hours, you got a serious problem, my friend, as Flojo did.
What did Flojo's husband say to you yesterday when you spoke to him?
Al was having a problem at the time with Mojo, with his daughter. He said, look, I want you to talk to my lawyer. And the reason he said that is because they're considering a grand jury hearing. I spoke yesterday with one of the marshals, with Rivera, who is the chief sheriff, and I spoke with one of the marshals investigating this. They're thinking of charging Al Joyner with a crime. They sent the information to a grand jury. They probably won't, but they're thinking of doing it because she has on her throat something called petechial marks. Petechial marks are if you imagine your finger pressing on your skin and it turns blue. She was grabbing her own throat, gasping for breath. Those long nails of hers, she broke a couple of them. She was gasping for breath. She couldn't breathe. So she's got these marks on her chest. Imagine hitting it when you're gasping for breath and you can't get any air in. She has these marks and these finger marks. They're thinking that maybe her husband choked her. This is nonsense. This is like the movie The Fugitive, where they don't have a suspect, so they're going to blame it on him. How dare them? They looked in her body and they missed the clues. Every organ, trachea, the thymus, the kidney, the spleen, pancreas, every organ in her body is loaded up with thick mucus. She couldn't breathe.
So have you talked with his attorney yet?
I've spoken with the attorney's office. I haven't spoken with Gary Meyer yet, the attorney, but I've spoken with Al a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And, with all of the care that I can, there's great pain in that family. Imagine she dies. This wonderful woman dies. She wore a milk mustache. She was betrayed by the dairy industry. They know what this does to black people.
And what's the dairy industry's reaction to you? I know they have spent millions of dollars. The what is it? The milk processors. What's the group called that's paying for all
the
this?
Fluid Milk Processors.
National Fluid Milk Processor Promotion Board.
The reaction to me?
Yes.
Well, they don't like me much. Last month, their magazine called Horde's Dairyman, they wrote an editorial about me. They said that they have 40 people full-time in their media division working to counter what I'm doing. They blame me on the loss of 8,000 dairy farms last year and the fact that people have drank 1.5 billion pounds less of milk. And as the white people get smart and drink less milk, they put more ads in the African-American community and newspapers telling you that milk is good for you, so you drink more of our poison. And this is something that I really call it slavery. One of my doctors in the Anti-Dairy Coalition, Dr. DeAndrea on the West Coast, he goes into schools in Watts and tells the children, this is a conspiracy. I don't go that far. I think it's a conspiracy of ignorance. That's why a show like this is teaching people, do the experiment. Try nothing, no milk and dairy for 5 days. Then on day 6, just a little bit. If you go on day 6 and you eat the yogurt like you're doing, Sister SDSD, and you have a cheese sandwich for lunch and pizza and ice cream for dessert, you better have one other thing nearby. You better have an extra roll of Charmin because you're going to have diarrhea the next 2 days.
I believe
You're going to wake up and say, my goodness, is that what this is doing to me all my life?
And yet,
the answer is yeah.
And yet you have medical doctors telling women that eating yogurt is good for them. It helps to balance their pH level and their acidity.
Oh, I had a friend who had a breast removed. She had a mastectomy, and I was in her hospital room when the first meal was brought to her. She had skim milk on that tray, and I got the doctor up in the room. I was thrown out of the hospital room. I was so angry. I got the doctor, and I said, do you know in that milk is IGF-1, the only hormone that's exactly alike between two animals, the only thing that makes cancer grow? The New York Times on November 8th, 1994, did an autopsy study, 3,000 deaths, and found how common breast cancer is. They found that women between the ages of 40 and 50, 39.6% have breast cancer. It's naturally controlled, though. It doesn't grow. You have pretty good bodies that control it. One thing makes it grow, this hormone I told you about. You make it in your body, it's gone in less than 1 second. In cow's milk, it remains active for 30 minutes. And if you look at the countries with the highest rate of breast cancer, they're Denmark, Norway, Holland, Sweden, the ones who drink the most milk.
So what if you don't get milk and don't drink milk and you still get breast cancer?
Well, you make this hormone, IGF-1. However, when you look at this, it's in the cheese, it's in the butter, it's in the ice cream, it's in the yogurt. You don't have to drink milk to get this hormone. 40% of what the average American eats. Last year it was 932 pounds. 40% of what the average American eats is milk and dairy. IGF-1, a hormone you make, is the key factor. But when you're overdosing on this hormone, every 12-ounce glass of milk you drink, you double the amount of that hormone in your body. You eat 1 slice of cheese, you eat 10 times the amount of the only hormone that makes breast cancer grow. 1 slice of cheese.
What part of the body makes IGF-1?
It's made it's in your saliva, it's in your kidney and spleens and pancreas. Almost every organ in your body makes it. It's a growth hormone. It does not discriminate. It's not going to grow you a bigger earlobe or a bigger nose unless you're Pinocchio or the FDA. But what it does is it makes everything grow. If it finds an existing cancer, cancer has no signal to stop growing. It simply is like pouring gasoline on a fire. This is a hormone that does a powerful thing. We know what estrogen does and testosterone and adrenaline. Well, this hormone has one role in life, grow. Everything grow. It's what makes us overweight. It tells every cell in our body to grow. Eliminate this hormone from your life, which means eliminate all dairy products from your life.
IGF-1, that is also some type of, the I in IGF-1 stands for insulin, or?
Yeah. Well, when it was discovered about 20 years ago, some scientists with a lot of imagination said, hey, it looks like insulin, let's call it insulin-like. So they called it insulin-like, and it makes things grow, so it was called insulin-like growth factor 1. Not a very imaginative name. It is the only hormone exactly alike between two other hormones, between two animals. The only one. The odds of that happening, that number is greater than the total number of atoms in the universe. It couldn't have happened that there is one hormone like a key fitting into a lock. It's a perfect match between humans and cows, the only hormone in all of nature. This is a big secret.
But this is a natural occurring hormone in cows as well?
It's
This is not something that's added?
Hormone.
What other, well, you spoke about hormones being added to the milk. What other kinds of hormones are added to the milk?
Well, today, as a result of that research, it was a company, Monsanto, who did genetic engineering. They took a hormone and made it artificially. They combined it with bacteria to grow a lot of it. When Monsanto first started this research back in the 1970s, they had a young attorney. His name was Clarence Thomas.
Oh.
And that was Monsanto's attorney with the firm of King and Spalding.
You're talking about the Clarence Thomas?
The man that's on the Supreme Court, that if the issue ever gets to the Supreme Court, he's their friend and there to protect them, yeah.
You're talking about the guy that's there for life?
I'm talking about the forever, okay, until he loses his life. He's there forever on the Supreme Court. This was Monsanto's attorney. Monsanto was the company that brought us Agent Orange and dioxin and PCBs and a lot of poisons in our society, a lot of that population control stuff. That's Monsanto. Well, Clarence Thomas was their attorney when the controversy, this was the greatest controversy in the history of the Food and Drug Administration, this hormone. And Congress was going to label milk containing this hormone. I mean, we have a right to know what we drink and eat, right?
Yes.
Well, the 12 members of the Committee on Congress, I investigated them. They took a bill that was going to label milk for 6 months. They stalled it and stalled it until the 1994 session of Congress expired. They went home for Christmas vacation, and the bill died. That's how Congress works.
Howard F. Lyman.
Okay, I'm out of here. I got 15 seconds left.
And he is, as I said, a fourth-generation Montana farmer.
All right,
And
gotta
he
go.
regularly
See ya.
douses cattle
Bye.
and soil with
I gotta
chemicals.
cut this stuff off
And
and
was
get out
only
of
when
here.
he narrowly
Girlfriend's
escaped
here.
paralysis from a spinal tumor